I said, I want to do that. But it was all done by hand at that time. And Grandma Baldwin was like, figure it out. And so I did. And I figured out how to do it by machine. And that ultimately became the foundation for a whole career.
Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast where we uncover the secrets to turning your passion for quilting into a profitable side hustle.
I'm Tori from the Quilt Patch by Tori.
And I'm Andy from True Blue Quilts. And together we're your co-hosts on this exciting journey of creativity, entrepreneurship, and all things quilting.
We're here to help you navigate the world of quilt pattern design, course creation, digital marketing, and running an online quilt business. We've been through the ups and downs ourselves, so we know what it takes to make money from your favorite hobby.
We are thrilled to welcome Beth Ann Williams to Quilting on the Side podcast. And we're just going to dive right in, Beth Ann, if you tell us a little bit about your quilt journey and how it turned into a successful business for you.
Okay, it's kind of a long one, so I'm going to try to condense it, and then if you need clarification, let me know. I'm actually really fortunate that I'm at least fourth generation quilt maker. Probably goes back further than that, but I have quilts from 4 generations back on two sides of my family. So I feel really honored with that. And it's a tradition when I was growing up that you were given a quilt, of course, when you were born. And then if you were lucky, when your siblings were born, you got another quilt so that you wouldn't feel left out, and you got a quilt when you finished school. You got a quilt if you moved away. Got a quilt when I went to college. Got a quilt when I got engaged. We got quilts when we were married. And then when we moved and then, started our own families. That whole quilts are very much a way to mark milestones and to express love in our family. And I first started quilting back in the 1970s with my grandmother, just little like dolly quilts, and loved quilts, but didn't think much about me as a quilt maker myself. It was just something I did with my grandmother until after my youngest was born. I was very, very ill, had a series of what the doctors think were mini strokes, and was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I lost speech, lost mobility. I mean, it was just really, I couldn't do anything really. And we didn't know if I was going to live or not. It turns out there's a whole bunch of other autoimmune. Often, if you have an autoimmune disease, you end up with a whole cluster of them, which is what happened. And I was in my 20s when this happened, and was training to be a linguist. It was my husband and I were planning to be linguists, and I lost speech like completely, like word salad. If somebody spoke to me, sometimes I could understand, and sometimes it was just like that Charlie Brown, rah, 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 rah. And when I would talk, what would come out wouldn't necessarily be what I meant. It was just the wiring was messed up. And so I had a grandma of the heart. You have those people in your lives that they're not blood relations, but they're of heart relations. And Grandma Baldwin took me under her wing, and she's like, "You're going to be okay. You're going to do this. You're going to quilt." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You need something to do. You need this." And she would come over and sit with me, and times when I was passing out 7 or 8 times a day. And so I was like sitting on the floor with the baby between my legs and my toddler next to me, because I was afraid to stand up. And she would just come and sit with me and just talk. And she'd bring me fabric and she'd bring me library books. And I was in the hospital at U of M for like a week, and I had my piles of library books. So all the nurses would come and sit on my bed and look at the look at the quilt books, you know. But that's how I started to envision that this might be a new language for me, that this might be a way that I could communicate to my family and friends that I love them. And so, and Grandma Baldwin came over, taught me how to use my sewing machine. I'd had one that I'd earned ripping plaster in like junior high, but I never learned to really use it. And so she came over and she made me take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, clean it, put it back together until I could do it myself, and really pushed me lovingly through it. She was like, no pity parties. You know, if you can feel your feelings and then get on with it. And it was the best thing. It was the best thing for me. And so the first quilts I made were for my babies, because at that point we didn't know if I was going to be around. So I thought about the fabrics and I thought about the patterns, and I tried to match that up with what we could see of their personalities, even though you're so young. Because, you know, even little ones, you can tell, you know, their personalities are coming through. And so my oldest, Jack, he's very structured. And so I made him a log cabin, and then Connor is like a free spirit. So I did a rail fence, you know, with it just kind of wandering right off the edge of the quilt kind of a thing. And it was like something lit up inside me. It was like, this is what I want to do. And eventually language did come back. You know, when I get tired, it gets a little funny. So if I mess up, just let me know and, you know, I'll clarify. But I kept up with it. And I was just devouring. This is before internet. So I was devouring all the books I could get. My husband went to all the libraries in the greater Grand Rapids area and brought back books, and just devouring it. And I came across Celtic applique. And I would love that because my own family is very heavily Scottish and Irish and Welsh and all of that. And I said, I want to do that. But it was all done by hand at that time. And Grandma Baldwin was like, figure it out. And so I did. And I figured out how to do it by machine. And that ultimately became the foundation for a whole career. And so I began as an Irish American fiber artist, showing in galleries and selling my work in galleries. That's how I got my start. And that was in 1990, you know, just a little minute ago, right? And then in, I think it was like 97 or so, I was getting ready for a show and I needed more safety pins to baste my quilts. So my husband went, there's a brand new quilt shop. My husband went and bought up all our safety pins. And the owner is like, why do you want all these safety pins? And so he told her, and she's like, well, tell your wife to come in. We're looking for teachers. And so that's how I got started teaching. And so I've been teaching ever since, in one capacity or another. I've done local quilt shops and guilds and shows and whatnot, and did 3 books with Martingale and Company, that Patchwork Place, and was touring, but the MS became too much of a problem. I was having seizures in airports and getting like I couldn't navigate, and people would think I was drunk. And it's like, no, I wasn't drunk. I was ill. And my doctor's like, you got to stop doing this. And about that time, the owner of a local chain of sewing stores said, well, what would it take to get you to work here full time as a teacher? And I said, well, I can't base in the store. I don't have the stamina, but you know, I could teach. He said, well, you think about it. This was a Thursday. He said, give me a proposal on Tuesday. So I did. And so I became creative director for this little chain of sewing stores here in West Michigan. And I did that from 2006 through the beginning of the pandemic. and learned so much. And that was really good. And at that point, I scaled back on my own business because I was, his business, and just did a little bit on the side. But then it became apparent he needed me full time in the store to do events and things. And I couldn't. I had what my doctors think was COVID 3 times. I test negative, but it takes such a low threshold for me to get really sick and I got long COVID every single time and was sick for 7 or 8 months, like really sick. So I'm like, I can't do anything live. And so that's when I said, I'm sorry, we got to part ways. So I started my own LLC last July. So it's been just over a year. That was the longest answer ever. I'm sorry about that. It took so long. But that's how it started. So it was some of this is like brand new because it's, brand new operating my own business, teaching all virtually, with the exception of that one thing at AQS. And learning how to put everything together, all the moving pieces and all the different things you have to subscribe to. I've got Canva and I've got, Shopify and I've got WordPress and, all of that. I did do Shannon Brinkley's patchwork. I think, Tori, you mentioned you did that too. And that was really helpful in the big picture. And I also am a professional level member of the Academy for Virtual Teaching. And that has been super helpful. I really recommend that to everybody as a resource. And I think that's where I first learned of you. It was through that. Anyway, so that's my long story.
No, that's wonderful.
Does that make sense to
we love long stories.
That makes sense.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's so inspirational to hear the building of this, that there's some people that just are able to pull it all together, but you made it work for you and your family, and it is so encouraging that quilting was kind of your way back to life.
It definitely was and is, really. Yeah. And I've become, it's one of those turn the hardest thing into the best thing, that Grandma Baldwin, like figure it out, and then figuring it out. And so that's become a cornerstone of my teaching and of my books and my patterns and everything. Is I had to learn ways to do things that were easier on my body, weren't as taxing to my arms and shoulders, that didn't take fine motor control, because I can't always feel my hands, so I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I used to do, and learning to do machine work versus handwork, but still get the look that I wanted, and just how to approach it in a different way. And so I think that really informs my teaching and my work, and then also my emotional approach to it, and viewing it as communication. And whether it's just communicating love, I mean, a square quilt with just squares, that can communicate love, all the way to a really elaborate journal quilt and everything in between. Helping other people tell their stories is really, I'm passionate about that, and explore. And definitely way back, Andy.
I think we could all use a Grandma Baldwin in our lives.
Oh, I miss her so much.
Yeah, someone special. Just because I am curious, and other people may wonder as well, in the world of quilting, what were some of your responsibilities as a creative director for a quilt shop? You mentioned events and classes, so is that a big part of it? What else was?
Well, it's actually a small, a very small local chain of sewing centers, really, because they were primarily machine dealerships that had, Bernina and Viking and Baby Lock. And so as well as classes and fabric and all of that kind of stuff. And I came in with it with really having to write my own job description. The position had never existed before. So it became, whatever my boss needed. Um, so it really did a lot of morphing over time. I was responsible for generating a lot of content, coming up with programs, often hosting programs or events, doing social media. I was involved in some of the commercials and things that we did that way, interacting with the manufacturers and getting information from the manufacturers to our customers, the newsletters, email blasts, all of that kind of stuff, local events, and then also coordinating with guest teachers for other events, and instructors coming in, a little bit of everything, really. Community outreach stuff, you name it, and I probably did it at some point. The only thing I didn't do was like order machines and sell the machines, that was not my area of responsibility. And organize the teachers, interviewing the teachers, helping hire the teachers, train them, how, assist them as much as they needed in terms of planning their classes, figuring out what to teach, even things like, how do you set your price, or how do you figure out how long a class should be, or what skill level this class is, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good training. I use a lot of what I did there, I use now in my own business.
I can see why your success blew up and just starting the LLC again in July and then using all of your background to push your own business forward. That's amazing.
It helped that I had a loyal, I hesitate to call them a customer base because they're my friends. I have people who've been taking classes from me since I began in 97 at Grand Quilt Company in the Eastbrook Mall in Grand Rapids, and are still with me, as well as new, along the way. My only regret is that I didn't start an email list until after I was on my own. Because if I had kept all those contacts, I would, I could have, I didn't. I had to start from scratch. But it did help that when I started, I had a base already. And then it's been a matter of trying to make sure that I have enough new content to serve my people that have been with me all along, as well as reach out and get new customers, new friends, new quilting friends. That's really cool about teaching online is I'm in Michigan, and the states that I get most people from, Michigan is pretty high up there, but I think it's only like number 4. California and Florida and Texas and New York and, all the big population states, it's just like wild. And Australia and England, I had a lady get up at 4 in the morning in Japan. It's pretty cool. Isn't it just awesome?
I love doing live sessions on my YouTube channel, and for a couple months in a row, I had the same lady join from Sweden. So it was always fun to see my Swedish friend come and join me quilting. So I really do.
Isn't that just awesome? I mean, people love to diss on the internet and diss on social media and whatnot, but I think a lot of it is what you bring to it. Yes. And what you're looking for, because whatever you're looking for, you're gonna find it. If you're just looking for the negative, you're gonna find it because it's there. But if you're looking for the good, you're gonna find it. I could talk about social media for a hot minute if you want.
Actually, I was about to say this might be a great place for me to ask
All
you.
Right.
So I actually went and found the stat earlier today to see how many views this particular video was at. But I saw that you went viral. And you had a video get 9.7 million views. Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
Like
it's
how
crazy.
that
Sure.
has that affected your business, or how was that whole experience?
Well, you know what? At first, I was sad. I was upset about it at first. I was not a happy camper, and my family thought I was nuts. Um, but here's the deal. You know, we all are who we are, right? And I am by nature very introverted, um, and very private. I can put on the extrovert hat because I want to interact with people and I want to connect with them. And then afterwards, I go back into my cocoon for a while, to recover. Um, but when I thought about social media and engaging on social media as my own self, not representing anybody else, but just as my own self, at first I was just like petrified and horrified. And I thought, and the idea of selling yourself and marketing, I was just like deeply uncomfortable with. And so I had to, as Grandma Baldwin would say, figure it out. And I thought to myself, well, what if I thought about it as a way to create community and connect with community and not think about it as this is my customer base, which incidentally they are, but they're also my friends, my community, my tribe, my people I like to hang out with. And I love going on Instagram and seeing what everybody's doing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who think that I like just everything, whether I like it or not. But that's not true. I just like everything. I love quilts. I love to see what everybody's doing. I'm so inspired by the creativity. I'm inspired by the color palettes. I want to see your cats on the quilts. I want to see your dogs. I mean, I love it. And I love Instagram more than Facebook because I don't have the memes. It's very focused. On Facebook, I set up my business page. So I have a personal page, but I also have my business page. And then I joined a couple community pages, well, I guess 4 or 5. And so again, it's very focused. So you're with people who like the same things. It's like, I love your t-shirt that I'm an introvert, but ask me about quilts. I don't have the wording right, but I love that.
You can support our podcast by shopping at quiltingontheside.com. Beth Ann's favorite t-shirt says, "Introverted but willing to discuss quilts."
Yes, I love that. I love that. Yep. When you mentioned that on one of your podcasts, I thought, oh my goodness, these are my people. Mm-hmm. I love that. And so I had to think about it like that. And when it came to, I did all the trainings and stuff and read all the books and Seth Godin, Marie Forleo, and, everybody. And they said with social media, you need to be consistent, right? And they talked about planning out, all that. For me personally, and I'm not saying this isn't good for anybody, but I'm saying for me personally, that shut me down. I just got anxiety around that. So in order to get past that anxiety around posting, I thought, okay, no, I just need to think of it as conversation with my friends. And I'm just telling them, hey, this is what I'm doing today. What are you doing? And so if you look at my posts, the vast majority is whatever I'm doing that day. So I don't plan any more than one day ahead what I'm going to do. And the only reason I do that is because the lighting is better at certain times of the day. If I need to film something, I need to do it when the light is good. And then I usually post at like 7:30 in the morning the next day. But that's as far ahead as I go. And if I'm not feeling well enough to work on anything, I don't post anything, except maybe some fabric, or maybe the cat's doing something cute, or or something. But I'll do every other day. I try to do at least every other day, and that consistency. The algorithm does like consistency. It's true, but it also wants interest. It wants people to be interested, and it wants engagement. So I think that has helped me because I tend to have high engagement because I engage back. If somebody leaves a comment, I engage with them because I'm hanging out with my friends, right? But I think, and that's been really good for me. That has turned into something I enjoy, as opposed to when I first started thinking about it, I would get this sick pit of dread in my stomach when I thought about social media. But when I could change that in my head to thinking about it, it's just, hi, this is what I'm doing today. What you doing? Then it became a thing of joy to me. I have noticed that the whole thing, the algorithm. People said, the algorithm hates me, the algorithm loves me. And I remind myself, the algorithm doesn't know who I am. It doesn't care who I am. The algorithm is there to keep as many people watching and engaging as possible. So if it thinks a certain account is going to be engaging, it'll show it to people, it'll give people a chance. But even if it's doing a really good job engaging, it's not going to keep promoting that at the same level indefinitely. It's going to rotate to something new so that they can have a higher chance of keeping more eyeballs on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Does that make sense? It's not a personal thing. And it's like the thing that I posted yesterday morning, I guess yesterday. It's just funny. I'll post the same clip on Facebook and Instagram at the same time. Sometimes they do about the same. Sometimes it'll blow up on Facebook and very small on Instagram. Sometimes vice versa. The one yesterday on Facebook has 100 and some views, 130 views and 4 likes. That same post on Instagram has, as of an hour ago, over 16,000 views and over 800 likes. It's the same thing. So it just, apparently, Instagram gave it a little boost, I don't know. So what I've learned is not to really pay attention to those numbers. If I start wondering if I'm on the right track, and I don't worry about this a lot, but if I start wondering if I'm on the right track with my posts, what I do is click on the insights and I look to see how many eyeballs actually saw this. And of that number of people who saw it, how many engaged or clicked through. And that, to me, that ratio is what's important. So it's not the raw numbers that are important, but it's that engagement. But even then, I don't get real hung up on it. And the reason I was so upset when that post went viral is because up to that point, I'd been doing a pretty good job of every time somebody followed me, I'd look at their page. And if they were mostly sewing or quilting or artist or something, I'd follow them back. Because community, right? Community, I'll follow you. You follow me, everybody's good. But once it came up, my account went from about 5,000 to over 40,000 in 2 weeks or less. I don't remember, less than 2 weeks. There's no way you can keep up with that. There's just no way. And so that's why I was like, oh, you're ruining my precious thing. But it has settled down. It has settled down right around, I think, 45,000, 44, 45. And there's some flux, because there's all those creepers that follow you. Mm-hmm. And, they follow you and then they drop off once they realize that you're not going to, you don't really want to see their whatever, and, and you don't engage and then they fall off. So there's always going to be some of that give and take. But it has settled down now to feeling more of a community again. And I've had other posts that went to 100,000 or 200,000, but most of them are in that, 35,000 or under. And a lot of them are under 2,000. And I don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. It's like.
Have you found a way to bring those Instagram followers and viewers over to your email list and actually turn them into customers?
Yes. Now I'm going to be a little controversial. Do you want me? Is that okay?
Yes,
Can I be
we love it.
controversial? Okay. Lead magnets are overrated. Okay. And I'll tell you why. And I also want to give some qualifying language. All right. Because if lead magnets are working for you, do it. Okay. I have nothing, they're not wrong in and of themselves. I don't want to discourage anybody. My experience is I did a couple of lead magnets. One was top tips for invisible machine applique, and one is top tips for machine quilting. And I'm really proud of them. They're multi-page photos. I mean, I worked hard on them. I'm proud of them as documents. I think they're valuable content. And when I promoted them, um, like on Facebook and Instagram, I got a big response. I got a whole bunch of people taking them. My email list all of a sudden like tripled. But you know what I found is that I keep a really tight eye on my email list because I'm on MailChimp, which I've been really happy with because I like their tags and their segments. And I'm really into tagging the audience so I know who took what class when. Because every time I teach a class, I kind of improve it a little bit based on what people are asking about. And I do handouts and I'll add things to handouts over time. And if I've made a substantive change to a handout, I'll go back and send it to everybody who's taken that class, the previous few years. So I love that. But they charge by how many people you have. And so I'm right on that bubble between two price points. So if somebody unsubscribes, I want to archive them right away so that they don't, add to that. And I recently went through and I hadn't done it in like a year. And I had like 100 people that over the previous few years had unsubscribed. And I looked at the tags on those people, and all but two of them were people who had just taken the lead magnet and ran, like immediately. And I thought, okay, so I'm paying for these people who just want the freebie. And so I've been testing some different things. And I don't mind giving free stuff. I give tons. If you go to my website, I have tons of free content. And I give free content out in my email blasts too. And I do free tips in my social media. I try to be generous with the content. But I also feel like from a business standpoint, that's the ones who take it and run. That is not my customer base. That is not the people I'm looking for. And so what I have found, I'm getting much better results getting the right people who want what I have to offer by content posts, by having occasionally boosting a class post. I don't boost any of my regular posts. Whatever viewers they get is just on the merits of the post. I never boost it or pay for followers or any of that kind of stuff. But when I have a class post, I try to boost that, just advertising this class is coming up. That's what I mean. I boost that at least once. And what I mean is I go in on, for anybody that's not familiar with it, I went on Facebook and they, you don't want to boost this post, you boost. And then I always define my audience. So I go, I want, usually I do 45 and up. Sometimes I'll do 35 and up, depending on what it is, because you want people that are going to have the time to, and for people who are into quilting or sewing machines or applique, or depending on what I'm doing, I never pick more than like 3 or 4 descriptors. And then I say whether I want US or US and Canada or US, Canada, England, Australia, I define it. So it's a very defined audience. And then pick how much I want to spend and how many days I want to run it. And I spend, here, hope this is helpful. I spend anywhere from $12 to the most I've ever spent was $45. And for a campaign, for the whole thing. And I figure and the 45, that was for a $50 class. So for all of these, if I had one extra person through that, it would paid for it. So that's how I think about it. And I have found that to be a really great way to get new people, new eyes, that may not be familiar with me, to click through, look at the class, look at the website, either sign up for the class. But that has also become, even if they don't sign up for the class, that has become my biggest email growth driver. And these people are signing up just with the, hey, let's stay in touch. No freebie. They're just signing up because they know I teach classes and they're interested in classes, and they know I charge and they're willing to pay for them. So then I feel like I've got the right audience. So does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
I'm giddy with excitement, and I hope our listeners are taking notes, because you just gave like a master level crash course on email marketing and how to use social media the right way. I'm serious. Well, what she just said, everything that she describes, this is what you learn when you take those high level courses with these professionals, is what she just outlined.
Oh, good.
And I am just like, I'm gushing over here. Like, you got it. I'm just like, she gets it. She's got it.
So use Beth Ann as a case study for how to run your social media. So that's great.
But I learned it the hard way. So yeah. But it is working for me, you know. And if it ever stops working, I'll do something else. But right now that seems to be working, and I am able to go on and open up Instagram and open Facebook every day with a sense of anticipation, because I want to see what's everybody doing. And that has changed it for me so much. And I think that sometimes as educators, as teachers, as business people, we're so concerned about appearing professional, appearing like we know what we're doing, competent, not feeling like the imposter syndrome, because most of us get that at some point, if not all the time. A lot of us have anxiety. A lot of us have social anxiety, and you have all of that piled on. So if we can let go of that and be authentic, I think that is so powerful, because then that gives everybody around us permission to be authentic. And I think that that's the key for me in terms of what I want out of my teaching. I've done creativity coaching too in the past, and mentoring a fiber arts group. And I never want people to feel like they're coming in to learn how to replicate exactly what I do. I want them to come in and I want to teach them how, because that's where they're paying me, right? I want to teach them how to do whatever we're doing. I want to teach them why I do it this way and not that way, and all the other ways I've tried. And then I want them to say, what if we do this? Or what if we do that? Or what if we change this? And to feel empowered to make it their own. So yeah, I think being real. And I try to bring that into my social media too. Now, do I go for good lighting? Yes. Everything is lit to death, you know. Do I crop out the background? Absolutely. You know, there is such a thing as too much authenticity. You know, you got to strike that happy medium. But I enjoy it. I do. I open it up, I'm excited. And it makes all the difference in the world to me.
Yeah, your shots and your pictures, they're very professional. Great lighting. Like you said, you light it to death, and you can see what you're working on. You can see the level of detail that you're working with. Like it's beautiful.
Thank you. That's what I'm going for. I'm actually legally blind without my glasses, and even with them, it's depending on where I am with the MS and the flares, I have a lot of difficulty. So I'm really aware that I am not alone in the world with dealing with stuff like this. And so I do try to light things and magnify and blow up and go in tight, and high resolution. And in my classes, I do the same thing. with the photographs and the clips that I show in my classes, that I think me dealing with these things has helped make me more sensitive to other people dealing with these things. And it's much more common, than we think. I mean, Tori, I don't know who you are, but you look really young. It's healthy and beautiful. And yeah, so you may not know what's like all this time. And Andy, I think you're probably younger than me too. But in this industry, age is a real thing. There's a lot of us quilters don't get to the point where they can really spend the money on fabric and have the time to really do it until they're like retired or almost retired, and then it's something that they do. And so I think we as designers and instructors need to be aware of that and conscious of that and how to serve that part of our audience.
I was wondering, do you have any help for your business?
Well, it depends on what you mean by help. I maintain my website. I do all my own emails. I do all my social media. I do all my fabric. My husband washes it for me. But after that, it's all me. I have a friend that I've known for many years now, Terry of Threadtails Quilt Works, who will quilt my large quilts. Now, I myself have quilted quilts up to 120 inches wide on a little Kenmore, so I know how to do it, but I physically can't do it anymore. So once a quilt gets like to, beyond twin size, or, that's even on the bubble, physically, it's too much for me to handle. And I love working with Terry because I feel like it's a true collaboration. When I have a quilt for her, I say, okay, this is the quilt. This is the palette. This is the thread color I'm thinking. This is the kind of movement I think would complement the quilt. What do you think? And this is the scale, I think. What do you think? And she'll come back and she'll say, either you're like, yep, that'll work great. Or she'll say, okay, maybe you should think about this shade instead, or that scale is maybe too big, or what about this pattern? And and so I really feel like it's a great collaboration, and I love working with her. So that has helped. And my daughter, Connor, will help if I get in a bind. There's sometimes I'll just get a brain fart, and like a massive brain fart, and I'll look at something and it's like, I know I should know how to do this, but it is just not happening, and she will rescue me. So I have lots of general support, but it is basically a one-person show.
That is inspiring.
Yeah,
I want to just say you are an inspiration.
Wow,
thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Been so much
and I'm so
fun.
excited about the podcast that you guys are doing. I think this is such a great idea. I do. I think it's fantastic. And the topics and things, like I said, I went back and watched them all. And we'll continue I subscribed, so I'll keep watching them all. And I keep telling people about it. So I would love anytime I'll come back, but I think it's really a wonderful idea. And I think you guys are doing a great job with it.
Thank you. And we are going to wrap up with some rapid fire questions, so don't leave just yet.
And we say rapid fire, but you don't necessarily have to give tiny short sentences if you want to tell us.
I'm not very good at that.
We're here for it. So I always start with, what's your favorite color?
All of them. Because I don't think in a specific color, I think in palettes. And so within a palette, almost any color will work, as long as you go lighter, darker, brighter, duller, until you find the perfect hue. So I like them all.
Yeah. I think it's a fun challenge to, pick different colors. I'm a monochromatic girl, so I love, like you said, pulling those different shades and hues and getting those fun combinations.
Yeah,
I love jumping across the color wheel.
Yeah, I do too. Now I have a monochromatic quilt behind me, but that's pretty rare for me. I tend to be, why use 5 when you can use 75, you know. but I love it all.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to choose.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Second question is yardage or pre-cut?
Yardage and fat quarters.
Okay, pretty.
I have a sucker for bundles.
Shop owners, take note. Just put a ribbon around it.
For bundles. Well, especially when you're buying online, because I very rarely get into an actual physical store anymore. And when you buy a bundle, you have a lot more assurance that those are actually going to work together than sometimes when you're buying online, depending on their lighting and depending on your screen, you can't always tell exactly. So yeah, sucker for bundles. And then my favorite designers, because I know their stuff works together.
I was going to say another piece of advice. She's just dropping it all over. Thank you.
I know these free tidbits, everybody. Your favorite notion?
Masking tape. I use masking tape to create a seam guide on my sewing machine. If I'm doing a seam allowance that's different than what I normally do, or if I'm mass producing half square triangles, I use masking tape to mark quilting lines. So I'm stitching not through it, but like next to it. I use masking tape to make labels I don't have a design wall right now because my design wall is downstairs and I'm not doing stairs very well right now. I get too dizzy. So I'm doing everything at my table up on the main floor. I've kind of commandeered the dining room is now my room. So I can't lay it all out. So I overlap things on my dining room table and I make labels out of masking tape. So I label each piece so I know the rows and the pieces in the row. And that works really well for me. And I put masking tape on the bottom of my rulers and templates so that they don't slip. Mm-hmm. So I love masking tape.
Yeah, look at all those uses.
Fourth question is, do you have any other hobbies besides quilting?
Yeah. Well, I love to read. I love audiobooks. But I also like to draw. I like to paint fabric. I like to make cloth dolls and figurative art and soft sculpture and fabric books and mixed media. I love all that stuff. I'm not doing a lot of it right now because I'm really focusing on getting the quilting business part sustaining. I have kind of a 3-year plan to get to the income level that I want to be at. And so I have learned that it's important to have balance, and sometimes you have to leave money on the table in order to have better mental health. And I do that, but I like doing lots of other things too.
That's great. Our last question is, who is inspiring you right now?
Grandma Baldwin. She lived into her 90s and her eyesight started to fail and, some of her physicality, suffered. But right up until the end, she was painting and sewing and creating and enjoying every minute of it. And I think, yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, Grandma Baldwin has a special place in our hearts now too. So
yeah,
you are doing a wonderful thing to put her lessons into practice and continue that quilting legacy.
I'm feeling another shirt coming on. The Grandma of the Heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You never know what kind of effect you're going to have in somebody's life. And she became this pivotal person for me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I'm forever grateful.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Beth Ann. This has been wonderful. And it's going to take me a while to absorb everything you just, as we've said throughout, you've given us so many great tips. And we thank you for spending time with us and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, we always like to ask, where can people find you?
Sure. My My main website is just www.bethannwilliams, all one word. Ann is just ANN, the plain old variety. And you can get to my shop through my main site, or you can go directly to it, and it's just shop.bethannwilliams.com. That's the easiest way. I'm on Instagram, bethann.williams. I'm on Facebook. If you put my name, it usually comes up. If you Google me, it comes up.
So my favorite takeaway from Beth Ann was when she was talking about mindset around social media, because a lot of times we get burnt out being on social media all the time and wondering what to post and when to post and all of that. And it was a great reminder that social media is made for us to come together as a group, as a community. And she approaches it like she's getting together with friends, or she's watching what her friends are doing and she's there hanging out with her friends. And it was a nice reminder that social media is supposed to work that way. And the more we enjoy it and really change our mindset around it as business owners to more of let's make some friends, it takes the stress away and it makes it way more fun. I really like that. It really stuck with me.
Beth Ann has a great attitude about social media, about life, about quilting. She's just an amazing person. I think my biggest takeaway from her stories was that we just keep learning it. She was able to pivot her business several times and mold it around her own needs and her family needs and her physical health and everything. So kind of keeping your eyes on your own priorities and figuring it out along the way are great inspirations that we can take away from her story.
And that's a theme that I've noticed of a lot of our guests within the quilting industry, is that they've been able to create a business around any limitations that they have and still make it a success.
Yeah, it's one of the best things about entrepreneurship in general, I think, that attracts a lot of people, is that they can fit their business into their life rather than having their life be those little bits after you work all day. So that's been encouraging. That's certainly the dream that that a lot of us are chasing.
Yeah, it's definitely my dream.
And if you enjoyed this episode of Quilting on the Side, please leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next chat. Until then, remember to have fun in your business and do a little quilting on the side.